Well, hey there everybody. Today I'm doing a video about this thing. It's been sitting on my bending table here in the background of several of my videos, and recently a viewer asked to see if I could talk a little bit about it. So that's what we're doing today. But first, let me preface with a story so I can give a little background. In some of my previous videos, I have mentioned that I bought my Neon equipment used from a closed shop, and while that is true, I have not mentioned that it is third hand. I bought it from someone who bought it from the shop, and they only had the torches set up and not properly adjusted, and they didn't have any of the bombarding equipment set up. And because their torches were incorrectly set up, they ended up ruining hundreds of dollars worth of glass by incorrectly heating it and not using a blow hose and bending it incorrectly. And when I purchased it from them, it included a couple Neon tube boxes full of just garbage scraps. And instead of ruining more glass myself practicing, I decided to reuse what I could of the discarded scraps. So I sorted it by size and have been cutting out the bad bends and welding the straight pieces together. So cutting practice and welding practice, and have been making the straight pieces into usable tubes that I can use for bending practice. So what you see here is a bunch of scrap that I've been using for practice. The base here is a core and coil transformer that's encased in porcelain ceramic, 6500 volt 20 milliamp transformer. And these are used for aesthetics, to hide the transformer, and as structural support, because usually signs that are sold with this do not have any sort of structure to them, no frames or anything like that. They use the glass itself to support it. So these holes in the top of the ceramic help support the tubes. This particular sign was apparently a licensed logo from a sports team of some sort, and it was made by Custom Neon and Vinyl Graphics in Topeka, Kansas. They still do have a website that looks rather dated. Checking on the Internet Archive, it hasn't been updated since 2004, so they may still be in business. But this transformer was included in a pile of transformers from the closed shop. And looking at the cracks on this transformer, it would seem that it probably got dropped and the tubes broke, and someone brought it into the shop looking to get it repaired, and when they realized it probably cost about as much as it did just to buy a new one, they just left the transformer at the shop. But since I had it lying around, I thought it might be interesting to kind of throw some of these scrap tubes that I've been making into it and turn it into a bit of an art piece. I'm going to dim the lights and we'll take a closer look at the colors and the bends. All right, now you get to see the ugly details of my amateur bending close up in all their horrific glory. So you can see I've done a lot of welding practice here, welding the bits together, various colors of random phosphors. Now, when the tube is off, a lot of the phosphors appear white. These here appear yellow, but when the tube is on, it's obvious that these are green. This is a color called Veep Green. This long sweeping curve was done on the ribbon burner, and the welds, of course, would be done on the Crossfire. And the 90s, I did those on the Crossfire as well. This is 15 millimeter glass, and it is harder to bend than the smaller diameter, so it's not the greatest to learn on. You can see the thinning of the phosphors, thinning of the glass, the twisting of the glass, making it lopsided. So yeah, I'm critiquing a lot of my work, but it's all a learning process. Since there's no one here to teach me, I have to do it wrong and then see what I can change about it. Here's one double back on the piece. You can see there's a crinkle in the glass, so bad job there. You can see some of the phosphors from the greens came down and settled into the clear part of the glass. That's kind of fun. The fill gas on both of these is argon, which is a pale lavender. If I were to add mercury, it would cause the gas to look blue, because mercury vapor illuminates blue and it kind of just overpowers the argon. Argon acts more just like a carrier gas when there's mercury added. Mercury in the tubes also helps them glow a lot brighter this is a standard blue, which is the same as the blue on the Neon Goose on the wall. And you can see that it's a lot brighter than it is right here, because without mercury, there's not as much ultraviolet radiation to eliminate the phosphors. I did try a, a bubble. This is not normally used in neon signs per se, but it's more of a kind of an artistic thing. As what you have to do is you heat the glass and you push it together, make what they call a gather, and then you inflate that. So here's a part where the piece broke, and actually multiple times, and I had to weld it back together. You can see how thin it is. The phosphor, the argon's coming through the phosphor there. This color here and here, it looks kind of like almost a peach color. This is Snow White 6500. It's the same white as you see on that sign, but without mercury again. It's very dim, and the argon kind of gives it a pinkish purplish color. This is some sort of purple there, and this I believe is ultra blue with a standard blue next to it. So I'm really surprised none of these blue and purple phosphors, the welds by them are leaking, because any of the powder gets into the weld, it'll cause the tube to crack or leak. You can see I used non-tubulated electrodes, so I had to use a side tubulation technique where you blow a hole in the side of the tube and weld on a small tubulation. You need to connect it to the manifold so you can evacuate the tube. These are very bad tubulations and bad tip-offs, actually. You can see here on this tip-off, there's a crack in the glass, a hairline fracture. As it cooled, the tubulation cracked, and I was very surprised when I hooked it up to a transformer, expecting it to start running really hot and eventually die after a few minutes. And that was almost a year ago. So I don't know how or why it hasn't leaked, but I don't know if the vacuum's holding it together or what, but so that's what it is. This piece is just a bunch of garbage thrown together in practice. Everything is practice. Let me pull this out of the base so you can see it. All right, so as I mentioned, these the glass tubes are used as a structural support for the sign, and in there we have just little spring contacts, and what you have to do is put electrode caps on them. So the electrodes contact the secondary output of the transformers. And that's why you put insulation and caps around the electrodes. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed learning a little more about this art sculpture that's been sitting on the bending table. Thanks for the viewer request. If there's anything else you guys would like to see around the shop, let me know, and maybe I'll do a video about it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hit subscribe for more neon related videos, and we'll see you next time.